Good morning, everyone. Welcome to session 2 in room 2. My name is Mike from NDE, and today's session is caring for mathematical identities of our students. Our speaker and facilitator is Dr. Diana Moss. Is a teaching assistant professor in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics at University of Nevada, Reno. She received her bachelor's degree in discrete mathematics and her master's degree in applied mathematics from UNR. After teaching middle school mathematics for 2 years, she earned her PhD in curriculum and teaching and learning with emphasis in mathematics education from UNR. Prior to joining UNR as a teaching assistant professor in 2020, she was a faculty at Appalachian State University for 4 years and Utah State University for 2 years. She teaches courses in mathematics and mathematics for elementary school teachers. Her research interests include children's mathematical thinking and teacher education. Also joining us is Dr. Bertholone Smith. She has 20 years of classroom experience teaching grades 1 to 7. She has taught in a variety of different educational settings, rural, urban, and alternative public. Her research involved helping to remove barriers to learning. With learning mathematics by investigating people's math stories, understanding how math identities are formed, and motivating students to engage in mathematics. So to all of you, welcome. And I'd like, without much further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Moss and Dr. Smith.
All right, hi everybody, and thank you for attending our conference. So today in this presentation, we're talking about caring for the mathematical identities of our students. There we go.
And the first thing we'd like you to do is participate in a little bit of thinking about your experience as a math learner. So if you could put in the chat, think of a math teacher that you really loved. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time to identify that math teacher. And maybe that is a person that inspired you, and that's why you're a teacher today. So think of the math teacher you loved, and then I want you to think of a math teacher that you really hated. Like it just was not a good learning environment. And if hated is too strong of a word, maybe it's just that you didn't prefer, or you didn't have your best learning experience with that person. So if everybody would think of those two people, and then if you could put in the chat, what made the difference between the two teachers? If you could identify one or two things, what made the difference? So some of the reasons, their ability to explain the why, not just say how it is, that creates favorite teacherdom, I think. Relationship connection, their ability, yep. Thank you, Pinky and Deborah, for responding. Everybody's putting in the chat. Somebody who's relatable. That was awesome. You can't think of a bad one. That's really good. So this one's interesting from Manette. One teacher looks at you and makes sure you're understanding, and the other is kind of just talking on the board and going through the examples. And if you see the picture on the slide, this is from one of my students in my math for educators class this semester, and here he is, like the person's, you know, the silent scream, and she's turned around, she's not even paying attention. Agreed. Beyond patient and assured I understood the correct answer. Took the time to go over material in a different way. These are all really great examples of teachers that made a difference. The teacher I loved focused more on making us understand no matter how hard it is for her. Right, so you can see teachers engage in math instruction and they try every way possible. And as a student, you can recognize that, you can pick up on it. Like, they're not giving up on you. They're going to totally expect you to get this, and they'll just do whatever they can. Room to commit mistakes, get mad when you get the wrong answer. That makes a difference. Yeah, so great. Thank you for all these messages, and please read the chat. We just don't have time to read every single one of them, but it's very interesting to see your favorite teacher and then your not so favorite teacher, and what made the difference. So in my class, I work with students who want to become teachers, and they teach them how to teach math in elementary grades. And so I ask them to write a letter to your favorite teacher, write a letter to your not so favorite math teacher, and draw a picture of yourself learning in both environments. And so I just wanted to read to you what I hear from them. What the one teacher says: I would ask you for help and you would respond with extremely vague answers because you wanted me to figure out the problem by myself. I was already confused and you refused to help me. After you refused to help me, you would call me to the front of the class to explain the problem. And I remember being utterly humiliated. At 21 years old, I stood at the front of my entire class of 30 peers fighting tears. These experiences made me shut down and stop talking. It was not only one time that you embarrassed me. There were many times you pulled me up to the front to the board to solve a problem, only to yell across the classroom, "No, that's wrong." So we can see that there's episodes of teaching that create these strong reactions and emotional reactions to learning math. Here's another one. She writes, to this day, I still talk about you and our 2 years of math class together. You are by far the best math teacher I ever had. You made me enjoy math, which I never thought was possible. Thank you for being so kind, so patient, and so sweet. I did the best math in those 2 years. I did so well because you cared and you showed us through how much you cared. Thank you for being the best math teacher I have ever had. And you can see in the student's face, like, you know, turns from very big frustration to lots of exclamation points. And that often happens when students are with a teacher who cares, that they perceive that from a teacher, they have a connection, then episodes of learning increase and they learn more math. Okay, here's another one.
Claudia, this one's me.
That's you. Go, Diana.
All right, so in my class, I did it just slightly differently. I didn't have them write letters to math as Claudia has done in her classes, but I do have the pre-service teachers, and I asked them to draw a picture of themselves learning math. So it was a little bit more open. And so here is one of the pictures. And if we just take a few minutes to look at this picture, go ahead and just write a few things that you're seeing in the picture itself. Like, what are something that's standing out to you? If you could just respond in the chat, that would be great. Yeah, so one thing, exactly, Joanna, students are bored or confused, distracted, except for one. This is what occurs in class, reality check. Yep. The students have lost focus and are struggling. Where is the teacher in this picture? Only one of the four are engaged. The student's thinking is preoccupied, probably because the teacher is boring. Yeah, definitely could be. So when we looked at this, just a few other things that we noticed is they're kind of like sitting at desks, they're not working together. One student seems very engaged, others don't. Actually, one is completely asleep, and then the poor person in the middle says, I don't even know what I know. And then you see the poster on the board says, math is easy for everyone but you. So that's what this student is probably seeing. So I asked them to just describe what they drew in the picture. And the student writes, growing up, I always found myself struggling with math and too afraid to ask for help. I somehow thought that everyone else just got it, even if that was not the case. I often felt embarrassed and so behind that even if I seek support, the support too would be overwhelming. Many times I would sit through my math classes, taking notes and pretending to learn, but grasping very little information. So as you can see, just from our little introduction here, we're teaching the adult students that are pre-service teachers at the university level. They want to teach K through 8. And many of them are coming to us with kind of in crisis about learning math. Some of them had great experiences, but what we had found was the mass majority has these issues with learning math. And we felt that one of our goals as the university professors is to help them change their mindset, because we're hoping that this will pass down to their students so that their students won't come to us in another 15 years with the same issues. So, anyway, go ahead, Claudia.
So to support this, a different way of thinking about what helps students connect in the math classroom, we draw on Bell Hooks' work. And she spent a lot of time in classrooms, a lot of thinking really outside the box about how can we connect students. And when we connect students, we build their identity. We build who they are and who they perceive themselves to be as math learners and doers and thinkers, not just in our classrooms, but in the world. And that's what we'd love for all our pre-service teachers to do, is walk into classrooms and help them understand math in these ways. And so Bell Hooks says teachers should be wholly present in mind, body, and spirit while encouraging students to take risks. And one of the reasons why math can be really sensitive is there's a risk we're taking when we're trying something new, and it's so focused on one answer, one procedure, one process. So we're encouraging them to take those risks. The teacher encourages communication and listening. So I noticed in some of your responses, teachers that allowed you to talk about things, teachers that allowed you to collaborate tended to get more engagement. And excitement is necessary to stimulate learning. And so like the picture Diana showed, if there's nothing going on that engages or captures student interest, oftentimes we lose them for that. So Bell Hooks talks about in the classroom, envisioning it a place where students have freedom to explore. It's exciting. They're testing mathematical boundaries. Maybe they're learning in non-conventional ways. They're doing problem solving and deep thinking, and they're having interaction, and they're sharing ideas and strategies. And this wheel of engagement starts to create kind of develops the whole student, the whole person as a math thinker and doer, not limited just to isolated problems or procedures.
So part of our presentation today, we will share pre-service teachers' poignant stories about learning math and how this helps us develop a dialogue and care for the mind and spirit of our students.
And before we talked about that, we wanted to talk about this idea of math anxiety, because it's real. And especially with our pre-service teachers, and many of you might have had math anxiety or still have math anxiety, even as we are teaching in the classroom. So some of the research talks about math anxiety is persistent among pre-service teachers. And I see that all the time. And they come in and they're just so scared of the math class. So it comes across as anxiety, emotional responses to things that we're doing. If they had negative experiences in the class, that can cause anxiety towards mathematics. And as the grade levels increase, the anxiety increases. A lot of the research shows that anxiety in mathematics isn't the math. It's caused by teachers' behaviors and approaches to teaching mathematics. For example, in the letters and the all the documents that I collect for my research, timed multiplication tests are the #1 stressor that I read about over and over and over again. I'm talking tears, crying, and that is the event that made them hate math. And if you were a teacher and were told to give timed tests, that's an example of a teacher approach to learning, or an approach to learning that was preferred by your school district or the curriculum they adopted, and that can cause anxiety. Anxiety can impact teachers' abilities to teach mathematics. It's interesting because the students who have the most anxiety say when they become a math teacher, they want to make sure their class is fun and no one and everyone, it feels like it's easy. And I can tell that they have a lot of anxiety because math was not fun and it was difficult. And so that's kind of where they want to go with that. And they have a hard time generating enthusiasm for things that are difficult because they have fear and anxiety around it. And we have to break that cycle. And we know, Diana and I know, we work really hard to break it in the teacher education institution. And that's part of why we do this research. So a piece of this is drawing a picture of yourself learning math. And these were pre-service teachers. And we did a big research study on this. So you can see the emotion that is evoked when these students were drawing a picture of themselves learning math. Big clouds, I hate math, long division, lots of tears. This up here is a big math storm on top of them. So we know that this creates a total barrier for students to see themselves as mathematicians, and also for students to become teachers of mathematics in a really powerful and positive way. And we need everyone going into classrooms and building the identities of their students as a positive mathematical identity. And it's difficult for us if we're still working on our own identity as well. Okay, so before we go into self-portraits and letters to math, can people write in the chat, have you noticed anxiety in your students? Have you noticed anxiety in other teachers that you teach with? Or have you had that experience of math anxiety? And maybe you could talk about how you changed it or shifted it. And Mary says, definitely. Thanks, Mary. So everybody put something in the chat about that whole piece of anxiety and how hard it is to work with that. Notice it within your students. Yes to everything. Yeah, and students. So we see students come to us with that. Yeah. And I love that, Suman, that kids shut down. So when we talk about behaviors in the math class and they give up early, thank you. That is coming from a really deep place of anxiety, fear, right? That's coming from their identity. Yeah, and helping them reframe the idea, if I'm good at math, no, we make them say out loud, I'm good at math. And as long as someone teaches it to me in a way I understand it, that's a big key. And seeing it as young as kindergarten students. Oh, and Maria had was a person who did not like math and ended up being a math teacher because an inspiring teacher. So we can make a difference on the same way that we can choose things that might cause anxiety in students. We can inspire teachers. I love that. Getting lost in second grade, they shut down. They don't like how it feels. And I noticed someone responded to the other question that a teacher made them feel dumb. And if a teacher makes you feel dumb, that is a massive shutdown, because you never want your friends to see that. So you just disconnect from the content. And unfortunately, if it's math, that can happen. And can be a reason for truancy. Yeah, sure. I don't want to come to class because it makes me feel that way. Awesome. You guys are an awesome group. Thank you for all that. So we're going to talk a little bit about self-portraits and letters to math. So one of the things we did is have the students write directly to math, which personified math, and we got some really interesting results. So this teacher says, "Dear math, I understand you. Well, I understand you until my teacher puts me on the spot in front of everyone. I enjoyed this until all eyes were on me as my sweaty palm gripped that terrible neon green Expo pen that I used to write down my answer in front of the entire classroom. Now I second guess myself. Now I hate this. Now I anxiously pray that my answer is correct so I don't look stupid in front of all my friends. You, math, make me feel insecure even though I do understand you. Why do I need to prove myself to you over and over?" So I thought that was a pretty poignant letter to that point. Here's another one. "Every day like clockwork, you opened up the slides." This is the teacher that came along with the textbook for the class and lectured right off the slides. "Then you assigned an ungodly amount of textbook problems for homework and would always let us work on them during the last third of class. I don't think I retained a single thing you ever said. I didn't understand why things were working. You were just trying to get us to memorize content from the slides and plug in numbers. That is not how you learn. And I could have told you that even then. And I don't think I ever cried more over a math class." So part of what we know, in order to break the cycle of anxiety, there has to be this coming to terms. Like that was how the teacher chose that. And now I can see that is not the right way to teach stuff, like to the comment in the chat, where I can understand math if someone teaches to me in the way I can understand. And that breaks the cycle of anxiety. Here's one. "You opened my eyes to a whole new world." This is a positive math teacher of math, what math education should and can be. From the very first day of your class, it was fast-paced, but not in an overwhelming way, but in an exciting way. You treated math as an exploration, a puzzle that needed to be solved. The use of hands-on manipulatives and group collaboration was something I'd never experienced in a math class before. And for the first time, I was understanding the why of math education. So we can see in these letters to math and letters about the best teacher and the worst teacher you ever had, part of this process is identifying that and helping us understand that given a great scenario, we can be math people. And that's how we rehabilitate ourselves and our students.
So another thing that we did in my classes is we asked our students to draw pre-post drawings of learning math. So I got the sense that I needed to know what has happened to them before they enter my class. So on the very first day of coming to the class, they draw a pre-drawing of themselves learning class and write a little summary about it, like I showed in the beginning. And then at the very end of the semester, I asked them to do the same thing again. So draw yourself learning math again. and write a summary about it. And the idea for this was I was hoping that they would pick up some methods or strategies that were used in the class to see that they could make sense of the math. And also I wanted them to kind of understand that learning is a struggle. If you're not struggling, you're not learning. And so I was hoping to maybe see some of that in the post, but I didn't really know. I had a whole semester of teaching and I tried all different methods with the content. So the next few are some pre and post drawings of students from the methods class. So here's a pre-portrait. And it just says, math can be a little confusing to me. I try to understand, but sometimes I just don't get it. And you can see we don't have a happy face here. We have question marks. Even her eyes look a little bewildered. And of course, I told my students, like, you don't have to be an artist to do this. You can draw a stick figure and explain it. And it still works perfectly fine. And then this is the same student. So this is the post-portrait. And so some things that I'm noticing from this are this student looks happy. The eyes don't look bewildered to me anymore. In the cloud, it says, I get it. And then I asked if the student could write a little comparison about the two drawings. And so she writes, in the first drawing, there looks like a lot of confusion. You can tell I was questioning math at first with the question marks and a weird, questionable face. In the post drawing, the girl understands math. She is happy about it and gets certain concepts of math, even though it can still be frustrating. I get that it takes time, but you can figure it out. So this one I like to showcase because I think we're getting the point across to our students that, look, it's not easy to learn. Like if you come into a class and you know everything in the class, you're not learning anything new. And as we all know, with engaging with math, it typically is a struggle at first until you get it. And then that light bulb goes off. So this is another student. So this is the pre-portrait. And we can see there's tears in this one. I believe that those are flames, fire, question marks. There's all those different tools, but maybe she doesn't know how to use them. And again, the sad face is kind of telling. So this student wrote, math is my least favorite subject. I'm terrible at it. So I drew myself on fire from learning math to describe how much I don't like it. And then this student's post drawing, you can see there's two parts. There's a part where the student is sitting at a desk doing some math and is happy and has a light bulb. And then another one where perhaps maybe the student's able to explain the math to somebody else. Maybe that's a board. And again, two happy faces, which is much better than what we saw before. And then this student wrote, in the beginning of the semester, I was worried about how well I would grasp these math concepts. But right now I feel pretty confident about it. Anyway, it's nice to see these things. A couple more. So a pre-portrait was, if you see in this one, so in elementary school, and then we have the contrast to high school. So this was kind of an interesting theme that we found was elementary school went fine and they felt like they were doing well and understood. And then high school math was a new, issue with it hadn't been an issue before. So this student wrote, in elementary school, I loved math. It was one of my favorite subjects. The challenge of finding solutions was fun and stimulating. In high school, though, having a semester to learn a year's worth of content was overwhelming for me, especially since my first 2 years of high school were in Miami, where we had year-long schedules. So anyway, I'm getting perspective on the students in my class also. And then the post portrait is showing the student, maybe I shouldn't give up on higher math. So again, I loved math in elementary school, but learning the same concepts again now, I really feel I understand. It makes sense to me, and I feel as though I might be able to understand more complex math with this new knowledge. And then just one more, because it's just so sad with these tears. And this one is saying, I've struggled with math my whole life. It's really hard for me. And then we can see this arrow, this showing the transition again, where there might still be confusion though, if we look at the think cloud. And this one says, I've always struggled with math. It makes me very frustrated when I do finally grasp a concept. I get really excited about it, but never feel 100% confident. And I think this is part of learning math. As a person who's been through a lot of math, I felt this most of my college years. And then the last thing is in this student's reflection, she said, my outlook is definitely more optimistic in my second drawing. My first drawing depicts pure confusion and anger when it comes to learning math. My second drawing still depicts some confusion, but is much more optimistic. So one thing to just say from these is, this is a great exercise for anyone to do. You can always draw a picture of yourselves learning math and have some of your colleagues do this as well, and just talk about it and to get these things out there. And that's a great way to help with anxiety. If you have your students do this too, they can do this and talk about it. So I really believe this can be done at any grade level. This was, of course, with these adult college students, but we can do it at any age. So in conclusion for this part, it's just that we generalize that our past experiences in learning situations can impact how we approach our current situations, and allowing time to process past learning experiences is a caring environment. In a caring environment is essential and effective. So we're just going to do a quick switch of the sharing of the screens to switch over to our next part. I'm going to stop share and Claudia is going to share.
Unmuting is way more effective. I have done this with 5th grade students, having them draw pictures of themselves learning math. And if you work with students, you should have them do this, because they are going to be very similar to the pictures you just saw Diana share and that I shared too, because they carry all these stories in their body. Every time a student hears a story about themselves, about learning math or who they are as a mathematician, they start developing a story and they can draw a picture of it. And they can also very quickly analyze, when was it that this started? Like, when did this fear of math or, belief in yourself as a mathematician start? So what we want to talk about now is we want to talk about, what do you do though? Because yes, we can have anxiety, and yes, we can have emotional reactions, and yes, we can have behaviors, but if we just sit in that moment and with the behaviors and the anxiety, no learning occurs. They never move off of it. They never shift to something different. And as teachers, we know we have to get curriculum covered. We have to move towards it. So I just want to share with you some work that I developed in the classroom when I was teaching with a colleague. and we call it tools, not rules. But this is just a piece of it. And you can see that the slide says, where are you operating from? Are you shirking? Are you working? Are you showboating? And this was developed because when I was teaching fifth and sixth grade, the Common Core state standards started, and that was very difficult transition. So if you've been in Nevada for a long time, the Nevada state standards before we rolled into the Common Core were kind of one version of math learning. The Common Core added a level of difficulty that was incredible for kids. And this sixth grade group was kind of stuck because they were having to do the Common Core and then move up to middle school where everything was going to be really highly advanced. It was, you know, so what did we get? A ton of behavior that the students were using to get themselves out of this work. So what we created was these 3 attitudes of that students can have during math, and we called them shirking, we called them working, and showboating. So we're doing one of those things, and this green word, working, we knew that we needed to remove the barriers, whatever was going on for them, so we could get them working. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. You can roll this out in your classroom if it makes sense to you, but it was really helpful with our students. So first thing we talk to them about is, above anything else, honesty. You just got to be honest with us. Like, we're going to have honest conversations with you, and you need to be honest with us about what's going on. And once we started talking about it this way, just be honest, what's going on. You know, we had a student who was really good at getting other students to do all her math work because she did have a quite significant math learning difference. And then we, you know, it's just saying, be honest, what's going on? And she fully said, this is what's happening. This is so hard for me. I don't know what to do. And so once we can get them honest, we can get them talking about what can we do for you? What's next? Okay. So with those words, shirking, working, and showboating, when we worked with our students, we had to get them to understand, what does the behavior look like when you're shirking, working, and showboating? And here's the hysterical part. I've done this over and over and over again. They all know what it is, and you know what it is too. So I'm going to ask you, think of a time when you didn't want to do something that you needed to do. And you're really good at avoiding it. And this could go back to your years in public education, or, you know, whatever it was. Write in the chat some behaviors that you use to avoid it. Okay. So everyone's going to write in the chat when you know you need to do something and you don't want to do it, or you don't like the way it makes you feel when someone is asking you to do it. This might be related to that math classroom you were in when you did not prefer that teacher. What did you do to avoid the work? So I'm looking for things. 3 new messages. Awesome. Alternative activities. Procrastination, productive procrastination. I love that word. Did things that I'd like to do. Feeling not okay. Yeah, I just don't feel good right now. So I can't do this. What else? What else do we do to avoid those activities? Bathroom breaks. Yep. What else? Doodling. Yes. Procrastinate. Yes. Like, I'll do that later. I think I'll go check this. I think I'll go to this. Doodling. When the teacher's talking, watch TV, eat, play with the dogs, anything besides what it is we're supposed to do. So in our class, we call that shirking. Like, you're just shirking, and it's not a big deal. Do everything but what you're supposed to do. I'm just laughing because it's so great because these are such universal behaviors. So with our students, we talk about, you know, this is what it looks like when you're shirking. So if you use this in your class, you have to get the students to share how it looks when they're shirking. The other piece of it is showboating. So this is kind of this is that moment when students want to steal social capital in the classroom because maybe they have some ability in mathematics. And the reason why this is really important is because sometimes those students are pretty clumsy about the way that they let everyone know how good they are at math. So they're the students that are like, okay, everybody, I'm in the group with you and I'm the best one here. So you guys just sit there and I'm going to do the entire project because I know none of you can do that. And the reason why that is so dangerous and why we have to get rid of that in the class is because that is forming the identity of those other students. Like those other students are hearing from a peer that they're bad at it. And then they take that into themselves and that becomes part of their math story. Like no one wants me in their group because I'm like bad at math. Okay. So what are some times when you wanted everyone to know you were the best of something, so you made sure to show off your abilities? I'm not going to make you put this in the chat, but this is what we ask our students. What did you do? And it's not about like when you're in a competition, you're trying to win a race, but we ask students about this, like what's a time when you wanted to make sure everyone knew you were the best? And this is again, often for social reasons. So showboating is kind of that other piece, because when we rolled out the Common Core in that 6th grade classroom, we had students who could get it, and then it became a weapon in the class. And then it was like, we cannot have that either. So we can't have shirking, we can't have showboating, we have to have working. And so we were helping them remove those behaviors, and we looked at it. Oh, your daughter. Diana's daughter fires everybody. Is she a showboater? She's showboating when she does that. You're fired. That's cute. So when we're in class, we want to talk to the students about what these behaviors are and when they come up. So another activity that we have for the students, if you wanted to do this with your students, is we give them charades. And groups have to make a charade of you shirking during math, and then they act it out, and the rest of the group has to guess, what is this group doing? Make a charade or do a skit of working, do a skit of showboating, and you do this in the class so the kids can all see this, and then they start to know and be able to identify that self-awareness, that self-assessment of what am I doing? It's just the behavior, right? So the behavior is indicative of how they feel inside, of the emotional storm that's brewing, of what's going on for them. And oftentimes that behavior, we get really stressed about the behavior, but if we can figure out the behavior and remove it, then we can get them working. And so this was a great way to do it. So I'm going to ask you to participate in this piece with me. And I would love it. And Diana, if you can read what people write in the chat, and if you want to, you can say this out loud. I'm going to ask you, what does it look like in your class when your students are shirking? Like now think of your students in your class. What behaviors do they use to avoid what you're asking them to do?
On their phone.
Thank you. What else? What else do they do?
Ask permission to go to the bathroom.
Yep. What else do they do?
With peers.
Yep.
Listening to music, watching videos.
Mm-hmm.
Showing their fingers crossed for the restroom and nodding off. Drinks, talking to friends, tattling. They say they'll do their work when they get home. Reading a book under their desk.
Oh.
Did you get sleeping?
I did nodding off, but
Okay,
sleeping is a really great shirking. Anything else? What else did they do?
Drawing.
Oh yeah.
Resting their head on the desk.
Okay. So I just had you say what you think students, what you see the students doing in your class. This is intended for you to do this in your class. So you ask the students, what does it look like when we shirk in our classroom, when we are shirking? And they will come up with this exact same thing. That I've done this so many times with all different grade levels, and they constantly come up, yeah, I do the, the bathroom, I do the pencil sharpening, I do the talking with my neighbor. They know what they're doing. And so we kind of say, yeah, that's shirking. That's just shirking behavior. That's something about how to avoid. So what about showboating? What's happening in your class when the students are showboating, that behavior when they're trying to like suck all the social capital and they're trying to smash other kids because they know more and they want them to know that they know more? Any ideas? What's showboating? You can put them in the chat or you can say them out loud.
So competing and saying that they're the winner. I am on top. Shouting out answers. Being loud. Rolling their eyes.
Yep.
Oh, saying they're on the second page.
Yeah.
Bragging that this is easy.
Yes. The classic.
Shouts out answers before others are done.
Yeah.
Repeatedly raising hands. Taking attention from others. Bragging that it's boring. Saying I'm already done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so one thing I want to say about showboating, I can do it without practice. It can feel really aggressive against you as a teacher because you're trying to be, very, go one step at a time, trying to be super supportive, trying to be super inclusive, but you do have students in your class that are going to feel bored or they're going to feel like it's easy. This is just behavior. Right. And it kind of stops them from getting to what they need to get to, which is maybe an extension activity that you have planned for them. Or maybe a different, they get on their computer program and I get to access different levels. So at some point in our lessons, they do get a process at their level. But this behavior is to get social attention. And so it's kind of operating in a different way, but we do have to hear it. It's annoying when they do it and we want them to stop so we can work with them on the behavior, but we do also have to acknowledge the kind of honesty behind the statement that if they are bored, we need to address it. So one thing you can do, like if you do this with your kids, they will bring up the same answers. I've seen all of those things and they'll say, when we're showboating in class, this is what happens. We are. Those are the behaviors. And then you ask them, what does it look like when someone's working in your class? What does it look like when you're working? And this is kind of the golden ticket here. So, sometimes like students will say, so let's just have some working ideas. Can you just write, what does it look like when students are working in your class?
Sharing ideas, engaged, helping others to do the work, submitting work on time, discussing how to solve a problem, papers with computations, focused on the tasks, helping other students, asking questions, taking notes.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay,
Oh,
so
and
what you have
answering questions too. Answering questions.
Okay. Oh, and answering questions. Yeah, both asking and answering. Okay, so what you just have here, this is a pretty awesome, powerful piece that you have in your classroom right now. So I do this with all the classes I teach because I want them to be able to self-assess. So they're having a behavior during math. And so I'll pull them out. So what's going on for you? Can you look at, look at the poster? What's happening? Are you shirking? Are you showboating? And they'll identify it. They'll be like, well, I'm talking a lot with my peers, so that feels like I'm shirking. And then the question is, what can you do differently? What do you need? Like, what can I do to help you get to the working? And they have a visual and they have a description of what working looks like. And so you can have that conversation and not have to load it with, you're talking all the time. Why are you talking all the time? You need to stop talking. We come at them hard with that. And instead, like, so what's going on? Why are you talking? What do you need? How can we get to you to the working? Here's the other golden ticket in this. Once the students have told you what working looks like, you can start praising the class for these working behaviors because they said them. If they said them, then you can use them. So like, we're starting to get ready. We're getting ready to get started. I might often say like, oh my gosh, I see a lot of people helping others do the work. And I also see students asking great questions. And you told me that's what working looks like. You are hard workers in math. Thank you so much. So it's not that they don't want to work. So, there's things that are going on, but we can cue them what it looks like. And that's how you get praise from the teacher. Well, somebody wrote in the chat, some teachers play favorites. Right? Such a dangerous thing to do. Instead of doing favorites like that thing we do, I really love how Ashley is not listening to music and she's doing her work right now. Like, so kids hate that. But if you say, I see 70% of this class having their papers out, they're writing, they're thinking on it. That's amazing. That is hard work. And I want you to keep that up. See, if I've identified 70% of the class, they have no idea if they're in the 70% or not. And so you'll see students who think they're in the 30 go, oh, I better get my paper out. Like, so that's just, it's something that you can use in your class and help cultivate that idea that we can become workers in mathematics. Like to Diana's point, you got to work hard in order to understand some of this mathematic content. And so we can do it, like we can be prepared and we can experience what it is like to work hard. So if my math identity also includes, I'm a hard worker, right? Like I'm a hard worker. I might be confused sometimes, but I'm a hard worker in math. That's going to get us really far. And that's kind of knocking on that, that mathematical mindset, that flexible mindset. If I'm a hard worker, it's not about my accomplishment at different math things. Oh, I got 100% on this, or I did this, or I did this. This is about me approaching difficult things and I can work hard to accomplish them. So that is so, such a great thing for your students to understand that they can work hard. And one thing I wanted to share too is this is a golden ticket as well. Your students are not unable to be very empathetic to their peers. They understand the social dynamics of your class because they live it, they generate it, they work it, that is their environment. And so this is a different question. Why are we doing this? So why are we shirking? So I'm gonna use maybe 1 minute. Anyone have an idea? Why do we shirk? Can you put it in the chat? Say it out loud, just one thing. Yes. Don't understand.
Bored or lost.
I'm bored. And if kids say, well, it's boring, well, tell me more about that. What part is boring? When have you been bored before? We don't want to look done. That's such a big one for kids that we don't want our friends to see. It's not interesting to me. Okay, so those are things. So once our students know why we shirk, then it builds this empathy too. Like, you're not just a behavior, you have an emotion under that behavior, and you're just showing it to us. The other piece is, why do we showboat? And this is a really great piece to get to, because our showboaters often are trying to get attention in the wrong way. They often feel alienated. They feel different because maybe they're gifted and they struggle and they're not sure how to be social and have peers that love them and you know, work with them and invite them into their groups. So they move to the showboating. And I know we're quickly running out of time, but if you do this, if you do the first one, ask them what it looks like. The second one, why do we do this? Then the students kind of have this nice package of, you know, it does feel hard when you don't understand something, but we can try and we can work hard and we can use some of those working behaviors to get to accomplishment. For the showboaters, you don't have to do that to be my friend. You can have gifts in mathematics and you can be a part of the group too. You can choose working behaviors and allow that gift for you where you're not going to get kids like, you know, annoyed at you always saying how smart you are. So just wanted to share that with you as a way to start working on those behaviors that can be really difficult for us as teachers, as students process difficult mathematics, and we can get them working feeling really great about themselves. All right, so we wanted to end on this slide. If we can create a space for telling our stories, listening with care, we can rehabilitate our students' relationships to learning and teaching math. And we hope that you feel encouraged to get out there, maybe take a new perspective, take your own journey with math, and work with students on their own journey and their identity. And here's the last slide. And I think we did it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Some people are asking about the slides. Mike, can we put the link? I can put the link in the chat. Is that okay with you, Diana?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so I'll put the link in the chat as a view. So if you wanted to take those slides and do some of the activities that we covered today, we'd love for you to try it.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. And if you do have any questions, our emails are there too.
Yeah, and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Yes.
It was really wonderful working with you today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Dr. Moss and Dr. Smith. And thank you guys for participating for session 2. I have put the link for attendance and survey. If you wanted to have a certificate mailed to you, please fill the survey in. Okay, have a great day, and thank you for session 2.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Mike. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. It's kind of deja vu from session 1. I'm going to have Kristen O'Keefe be a co-host with me.
Oh, sure, yeah. Let me. And Christine.
This is session 3 now, right?
That's
Yes,
right.
session 3.
Oh, thank you.
And she might not be in here yet, but she'll be here soon.
Who? Kristen?
Kristen O'Keefe.
Okay. Okay. So. Okay, let me.
Ah, there we go. Perfect.
Hey.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for coming for session 3. My name is Mike from NDE, and session 3 talks about Let's Talk Math.
Yay.
Tools for getting your student talking. With us is Carrie here and Christine O'Keefe, and they are our presenter. Okay, take it away, guys.
Awesome. I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to get in, but I'll go ahead and share my screen and pull up the title and give you guys an attendance link to share. Let's see what I can do. Awesome. How's everybody's day going? Hope you're getting lots of great things. I know I sure am. And actually, I want to get back. And from beginning, I think there we go. And try to see my chat. Okay. I want to honor everybody's time. So I know a few people are switching from one session to another session. So we'll get going in about a minute or so. There are 2 attendances that you're going to do for this session. The first attendance is the one that Mike is going to put into the chat. And oh, I'm so happy to hear that, Crystal, the great conference so far. Hopefully I can keep that up. So Mike is going to put an attendance in the chat. That is important for you to fill out so that you get credit for attending this session in your overall conference hours or certificate. The second one is an attendance that Kristen O'Keefe put in the chat. And that one is for me to keep record. I can send you an email with all the information we saw in this session. And you can email me any information also. Also in the chat, Kristen put in a digital note taker. The digital note taker is just a great way for you to keep track of what we're going to be covering in this session. This session is going to go pretty quick. It's a 40-minute session, so it's a short one compared to the other ones. And so let's get going. We're going to talk math today. So attendance link, if you would like to scan that really quick or go to the chat. Kristen O'Keefe put one in there. But again, make sure you do the one Mike. That's the important one. And first thing I want us to do is talk about this session's goal. Really, my goal for you is to come away with resources that you can use to support a student-centered classroom. Really getting your kids talking. That is probably the biggest shift in my teaching over the 20 years I've been teaching. And that's the biggest shift I've made that has the biggest bang for its buck, is really getting those students talking. Dan Meyer said something this morning that I totally agree with. And he said the most underutilized resource in the classroom is students. And so how can we get our students to become those resources that really give us some great deep conversation and conceptual building? So what I would like you to do is, how many ways can you count the dots? Okay, so we're looking at these dots here in the chat really quick. Just let everyone know, how many ways can you count these dots? In a classroom, I would have my students with their hands in front of them, just like 1, 2, 3, 4, as many as they can. Okay, so let's see. I'll give you about a minute or so of thinking time, and go ahead and think, how many ways can you count those dots? Okay, I see some really great by rows, diagonally, by color, colors, diagonally, line strips. All right, so let's kind of talk about this task right here. Did everybody feel like they were able to count the dots, or think about different ways they could count the dots? Okay, and this is what I want to do with my students. I want them to think about, how can I count these dots? Even if they're in my algebra class and they are like, I don't know how to solve for X. I want to give them a point where they can come in and feel confident. And I know Dan Meyer had talked about that, building that confidence in your students. So I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to have a few people share what they did. So Cheryl said by color. A lot of people said by color. So would anybody like to unmute and share how they did it by color?
I went diagonally across from the top down, and then I realized that they were both the same, so I doubled it and got 20.
Okay, so you looked at like all the purples, and then you're like, oh, it's similar for the orange, so 10 plus 10 is 20.
Pattern.
All right, a couple people said rows. How did you visualize this with rows? Would anybody like to unmute and talk about how they visualize this with rows?
I saw that all the rows were equal, so then I just said like, okay, 5, and then there's 4 rows. So just multiplication.
Whoops, sorry, let me get back there. So you just said there's 5 rows or 4 rows of 5, so 20. Anybody find a creative way of counting the dots that they'd like to share? I always love to encourage my students to come up with the most creative way they could count the dots.
I teach high school math, and so I always try to like gain their confidence back in, younger years, and tell them that, okay, this is, like combining like terms when you were in your, it's like younger years, like K-3 maybe. So I'm going to have them say, okay, there's 2 oranges and then 4 orange and another 4 orange. And those orange, like we change it to a variable O, and then, count the purples, and then we combine together the O's and the P's.
Awesome. So you're kind of bringing in that curriculum into a warm up that everybody's able to approach. I love that. So this is something you can do. I know it seems very elementary, but it's a great way to get those conversations going and to help students see that there's lots of ways to view different types of problems. So I'm going to go here. All right. So today's agenda is really going to be, why do we want our students talking? How do we create a safe space for student discussion? Because really the first step to getting our students talking is for them feeling safe. We're going to look at the first 10 minutes math openers. And that's the key, is getting those kids engaged immediately. And then finally, we'll look at some rich tasks to support productive struggle. We're going to forego reflecting on learning since this is a shorter session. If we have time, we'll get to that. But I really want to hit those first 2. Okay, so when I think about student discussion, there's 3 big areas and themes that I want to focus on. Supporting student discourse. That honestly is the most important, because if students aren't feeling comfortable with themselves and their peers and doing math, they're not going to talk. The next is posing those purposeful questions. In order to get students talking, we need to give them a question that they can attack. And a lot of the times that's going to be very simple in the beginning so that they feel comfortable, as Dan Meyer was saying earlier today with his student. And then last, using visual representations. Looking at multiple ways of solving problems and letting the students share how they visualize that problem is key to getting those students engaged and talking. Okay, so why do we want students talking? I want you to read this slide. I'm not going to read it to you. I'll give you about 30 seconds. And in the chat, I'd like you to share a word or phrase that resonates with you. Okay, am I missing anything in the chat? Confidence. Victoria, I agree, all students. Kristen said doing math, not learning math. I feel like we're so used to how we were taught math, stand and deliver and just get the math, not do the math. All right, some great ideas in there. So these are things we really want to think about as we're moving students towards talking. All right. So first and foremost, Dan Meyer mentioned this in the keynote, and I agree 100%, is we need to let our kids feel safe. We want them to feel safe in our classes. So first thing you want to do when you're creating that safe space for student discussion is building the math identity. How do your students see themselves as mathematician? How do you use their identity to support their learning? I know the session prior to mine really did talk about that. Because of the shortness of this, and I really want us to get us doing some math, I am going to share a few ideas with you of things that I did or I have seen other teachers do as far as math identity. But we're not going to spend a ton of time on that. I will give you some places to go look more. Okay, so there's a great podcast, Kids Math Talk episode 2. This is in the digital note taker, a link to this. It's a very short 10-minute blog or podcast on what are some things you can do to build your students' math identity. Okay, another thing is I've been reading this book, Productive Math Struggle, 6-Point Action Plan, and chapter 2 is all about fostering and student identity. One of the teachers that is reading the book with me is using that idea, and what she did is she created, we all have math superpowers, and so all her students came up with what their math superpower was. It can be anywhere from I don't give up when I struggle to I know fractions. And I saw all of those on there. So those are some honoring their identity. Something that I always did in my class was I had my students create a mathography the first couple of days of school. It gave me a chance to learn about my students. If you're in a high school, you could just do, or actually if you're anywhere, you could just do a forms survey, have them fill out a form survey. Share where do they feel their strengths are, where are their weaknesses, what are successful areas within their math careers, where have they felt less successful, and then getting to know them. I always had my students share that with their peers so that we could see we're all in this together. And so those are some ways that you can help bring about a math identity. And again, if you'd like to know more about this, you have access to these in the digital note taker. Okay. Another thing that I think is important in building that safe space for students is building a community. So how do you build a community in your class? Does anybody want to answer this question, whether it's in the chat? How do you establish norms for behaviors and interactions? How do you help your students see the value of struggle in interactions? Okay. Any thoughts in the chat, or unmute yourself, go ahead and share.
I've always had my students learn by the acronym TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. Because I tell them, you see something different from somebody else, but they will see something from another point of view that you will not see. It's kind of like you're holding up a ball and they see the front, but somebody sees it from the other side. They see the other half. Put it together, you get the whole picture.
I love it. In the chat, I saw everyone are accepting wrong answers, valuing those wrong answers is great. Community circle activities, some great ideas. Again, it's so important for your students to realize that math isn't about the answer. It's about the journey. It's about helping them see that everybody's not going to approach it the same way. And in the past, we've always taught the algorithm and they follow the steps, but we want to move away from that. We really want to honor students' thinking and utilize that super important resource of students in our class. Modeling, setting clear expectations, following through with them. We're all wrong sometimes, even me, throw out what you're thinking. And if it's wrong, we'll use it and learn from it and keep going. Something I like to do in my exit tickets, and I know this is kind of off the thing, is my favorite no. So exit tickets, I'd go yes, no, and I'd bring in my favorite no. The kids would love to see their work on the board, but again, establishing that community so they feel safe in making them. And so that's kind of a fun one, to value their mistakes. All right, so here's some things that I have done, or I know other people have done in order to build a community. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the hundreds task, modeling group work. I always do this the first couple days of school, not the first day. I want to get to know the students a little bit, but within the second, third, fourth day, we do the hundreds task. This is an amazing task from 6th grade all the way up to my calculus class. So this picture in the middle is my calculus class working on it. And then once we complete this task, we talk about what it looks like to have a community and work together and create an anchor chart. So this is a great activity. I put the link in the digital note taker. I'm seeing some great topics in the chat come up. Sorry, I keep going off on that side. But if you're struggling on how do you build a community, this is a safe activity where you can take pictures as your students are working on this and then create an anchor chart of what group work looks like in a class. And so another thing that I think is great for building a community is creating a safe space, is giving students the opportunity to participate. And so I have a short video of openers. And this was my favorite way to get kids comfortable in the class. With openers, I didn't necessarily always pick something that was related to the curriculum. I picked something that was safe for students to work on and everybody could participate in. Once we did that, then we would move into the curriculum, but they felt safe and they were able to contribute. So we're going to watch this video, hopefully. We'll skip verification. All right, I'm going to go through this way.
Hi, I'm Dan Finkel, and I'm a math educator. If you were to ask me what is one small change I could make in my classroom that would give me the biggest bang for the buck, I would say start using openers in your math class. And what openers are is they are 5 to 10 minute routines. You can do these 2 or 3 times a week, and they have the potential to transform the culture of your classroom. They're super simple, and we're living in a golden age of these right now. So they include things like number talks, dot talks, unit chats, fraction talks. Which one doesn't belong? There's a ton of these. They're available online. They're really easy to find. People have just built them for you. There's a bunch on my website. And you go up and you just put up a simple, immediate question or picture on the board, and students talk about it and discuss it and start thinking it through. And immediately, it does so much that math needs to do. It starts with a compelling question. It gets them curious right away. And it values what they see and what they have to say about it. So there's not this high bar to entry. Anyone can get started. And if you want to know that these work, try it out for 2 or 3 weeks. And what you will find is your students might start being a little hesitant. They're not exactly sure. By the end, they will be seeing things about the way numbers work together, about the way the mathematical relationships work together that maybe you weren't even aware of. And to see students saying, oh, this is actually my observation, this matters, that's just one of the most exciting things to happen in the classroom. So for a 5 or 10 minute investment of time, 2 to 3 times a week, doesn't have to derail anything else you're doing. You can even pick out another time to do it. Total game changer for the classroom. And it's like first recommendation. You just want to get started trying something new. That's what you try.
All right, let's go back over here. So I love openers. Like I said, that was a big game changer for me. And so let's just do a quick summary of what Dan Finkel said in his video. Openers are high impact, low risk. All students can participate. In 5 to 10 days, they give a huge boost in students' numerical fluency. I'm working with a lot of high school teachers right now, and they say the #1 issue is numerical fluency. The kids don't know their numbers, and they just don't know that. They try to depend on the algorithm. And so this is a way where they don't have to depend on the algorithm. They build their number fluency. They support a classroom culture of rigorous, thoughtful conversations. They self-differentiate, encourage students to challenge themselves appropriately, and they invite all students to join in and be involved. Okay, so what I'd like us to do is try an opener. I'm going to have us try one. And what I want you to notice is with this opener, it's very open. There's not a question. Everyone should be able to participate. So we're looking at this picture here, and we want to know how many. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. Let's see how many people. They're all ready to go. Oh, they are? Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, and in your breakout rooms, talk about how many there are. You'll have a Jamboard, The link is in the chat, and on the Jamboard, I put 6 identical pictures of this. So if everybody has different ways to think about how many there are, you can share that out. So go ahead and open up those breakout rooms. And Pat, how many do you see? Thanks, Kristen. And
And one thing that I remembered after,
Mhm.
that I remembered afterwards is a little tip that someone told me is have them open the Jamboard before they go to the breakout rooms. So that I didn't
Okay.
have the catastrophe that I did. Yours is good. But I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Open the Jamboard before you go to the breakout room. That way, if there's like technical
Okay.
support or anything you need.
Oh, and I totally forgot to tell them to go to the Jamboard
No, you
of
did.
their breakout room.
Oh, we'll figure it out. I think we've done Jamboards quite a bit.
I'm looking at time. I'm amazed I'm on time, right where my slideshow says I should be. Kristen, do you want to broadcast 2 minutes?
Sure.
Okay. And is there anything that you can tell me to change? I'm going fast.
Nope. You were doing good. You've got it.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close. Oh, never mind.
I just did. Let's see.
Or did.
Picked everyone out. I'm seeing some great ideas in here. All right, so welcome back. I'm looking at Jamboard 1 and I see a lot of Post-its on there. I love the Post-its. I see 19. And can someone share what they mean when they say I see 19? All right, over on the side, I see 19 pieces, but if you add them, you get a whole for 20.
Right, that was me.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, if you count all the pieces individually, regardless of their shape, you get 19. But if you combine them into the whole, the hexagon that it has, you get 20. So you could count that as a whole piece, even though it's individually. It depends on your perspective here, how you're looking at it. There are 3 triangles in green. There are 15 trapezoids, 1 hexagon in the center for a total of 19 pieces. But if you put it together into a single, that's a 20th piece. The sum of the parts is the whole.
Awesome.
And again, you can make other points of view and other rational explanations of what you have other pieces. I suppose
right,
if you wanted to.
Come over here to, group 4, 1 hexagon, 15 trapezoids, 3 triangles, 18 total shapes, 1 yellow, 15 red, 3 green. That seems very mathematical to me. Anybody want to add to that? Or if I were to make this shape out of just triangles, how many triangles would there be? Actually, because of time, let's take that back. If I were to make this out of just the red trapezoids, how many trapezoids would you see?
15.
Yeah, here, 15. Agree. Oh, Karen says 18. Interesting. Okay. So we have 15 and 18.
Separate
16.
one.
Oh, I love it. What I would do right here is I would put all those answers on the board and we would talk about them all. And so I have a 15, a 16, and an 18. Maybe one of those is right, maybe not. But for time's sake, I'm going to cut this short. However, this would be a great opportunity for you and your students to share. And this is considered an opener, something that you can take 5 to 10 minutes on at the beginning of class. It gets all the kids talking. It gets everybody in a place. Somebody can say, I see 1 hexagon. But at least they're contributing to the conversation and they're feeling comfortable, like they can try something. Okay. So one of my goals was for you to hopefully think about openers. Openers are a huge way to bring conversations into the class. They don't have to be content specific. I very rarely did an opener that was related to the curriculum we were doing unless I could bring it down to a really low level. Low floor, high ceiling. Some resources for openers that I love: Math for Love, Visual Patterns, Math in 3 Acts. Math in 3 Acts is awesome. If you haven't used that, this Google Sheet breaks it up by standard, grade level. I would do a football one the day before football, homecoming. Which one doesn't belong? I love which one doesn't belong. Everybody can answer a different box and there's a reason, so it really helps them with their justification. All of these are great. Are there any? Oh, are those links? Yes, all these links are in the digital note taker and at the very bottom of the digital note taker, and we'll post that at the very end of the session again. There is a link to this PowerPoint, so you can go to this PowerPoint. It's actually a Google Slides. So you'll have access to all of these. And again, time-wise, we're not able to get to all of them, but these are some great places to find some resources for openers. Okay, let's move on to the next part. So once you have the openers and you have your math identities built and you have your community built and the kids are comfortable, then you want to move into finding rich tasks that support your content. And so where do you find tasks to get your students talking? Okay, so what I would like you guys to do in the note taker, in the chat. Oh, really quick, what are rich tasks? traditionally we do the I do, we do, you do, but within mathematics, we're really pushing to move towards launch, engage, debrief. This creates a pathway for students to make sense, reason, connect ideas in order to establish their own ideas. I love telling my kids, I want you to make the connections. I've already made my personal connections. Now it's your turn to make your personal connections. It also creates opportunities for students to struggle, and struggle is essential for learning. All right, so choose your adventure. We're going to do one more problem before we close it up. And these are both curriculum type problems. Open middle, if you're not familiar with that, is you pick the digits 1 to 9, put them in the boxes, and you have a goal. 2-color visual patterns is another great one. I use 2-color visual patterns or visual patterns constantly in my algebra class. Open middle, I would use those from middle school all the way up to calculus. So in the chat really quick, which one would you like, A or B? And I'm just going to hopefully see a whole bunch of one or the others, and then we'll open those up. Okay. I think I'm seeing just a teeny bit more on the A's. So we're going to go ahead and do open middle. Again, on the digital note taker, you have both of these, so you can look at both of them. So open middle. So this is, you want to create an equation with a solution closest to 0. You can use the digits 1 to 9 at most one time to fill in the boxes to create the equation that's closest to 0. I'm going to go ahead and put you in breakout rooms. Whatever breakout room number you are, that's what Jamboard you're going to go to. The Jamboard link is in the chat. I'd go ahead and just click that just to make sure it's working for you. And we're going to send you to, oh, I love Rob Kaplinski, send you to the breakout rooms and give you probably about 3 or 4 minutes to work on this.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and close breakout rooms. Does
Okay.
that work? All
Yeah,
right.
I'm pretty much to the end, but yes, you can definitely do that.
It'll be 3.5 minutes.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, welcome back. I'm going to say that I saw some really great work in those on that Jamboard. So I'm going to try to go ahead and go here. I loved the Post-its. So right here, what would be the value of this one? So 7x -1, so -1/7. Did anybody in the chat get something closer than -1/7?
We had -1/8.
Oh, nice, -1/8. Oh, a couple -1/8s. Did anybody get a +1/8? Anybody get something closer than -1/8? All right, so this question actually has a answer, and 1/8 or -1/8 is the closest you can get. So great job to those groups. So Open Middle is a great site. What it does is it opens the middle of the question. The question in the beginning, this one that I gave you, is closed. Everybody's working on the same question. The answer at the end can be open or closed. So there can be an answer that's specific, like in this case. Otherwise, it can be an open answer where everybody's trying to get closer and we don't know what the right answer is. So it can be closed or open on the end. But in the middle, where you're playing around with these numbers, that's always open. And that's what's called the Open Middle. Open Middle is a great site. We're going to skip this one. Open Middle is a great site. It has all of the problems from first grade all the way up, maybe even kindergarten all the way up to calculus. So this link right here will take you to a site. I'm going to skip verification, and you can just see that every grade on here, all the way to high school, numbers, calculus, computer science, you can find problems that are open middle where kids can work on this. Again, this is a problem that all kids can participate in. So here's a few other places of where I like to find rich tasks. Oops, I need to close that. Math for Love, that's where the first task came from, but they have great lessons. Teacher Desmos, I love Teacher Desmos. For getting students to talk, I really like to pair them up at one computer, not have them work independently. The Mars Assessment Project is a great one. Illustrative Mathematics has tasks based on grade and standard, and U-Cubed is a Joe Bowler site. You have to look a little harder to find tasks that might relate to your curriculum through U-Cubed. And Math for Love, all the other four are great. It just, I need a task for this, and you'll be able to find it pretty quick with minimal searching. Okay. All right, another great resource for rich tasks is your textbook. I went and found textbook problems from a lot of the textbooks people use throughout the state. And even though it seems so simple, the textbook, just giving them the problem without the steps being identified is a great way to get a task into your class. All right, so bringing closure. We are down to our last couple minutes. Once you do a task and the kids are talking, you do definitely want to bring closure to that lesson. A couple of things that I have done is share and connect strategies. Students come up to the board, we connect strategies between one person's solution or one group's solution and another group solution. Definitely reflection activities, having the kids do I notice, I wonder, or 3, 2, 1, 3 things they learned, 2 things they're still curious about, 1 thing they want to know more about. Check for understandings. Again, that favorite no, where you just give them one problem and then did they get it not, and then come in with my favorite no. So those are some things you can do to bring closure. So where are you in this process? That's what I want you to leave today with. Where are you in this process of getting your kids thinking? What are your next steps? And I have to end with the Backstreet Boys because I'm a product of the 80s and 90s. So where do the Backstreet Boys and math teachers wanting explanations intersect? Tell me why. And last but not least, this was so short, but if you're interested in learning more, here are some resources that I think are great principles to action. All of these have links to where you can find more information about these. Building Thinking Classrooms, Productive Math Struggle, and Math Finkel, how to use math openers. He has a webinar on that really can get you more involved in using those math openers. Karen, I love the back. Actually, my little sister loved the Backstreets more than I did, but they're still pretty good. All right. That was a whirlwind of a session. Thank you so much. I hope you got some ideas out of this. If there's anything you want more information about, please go ahead and email me. Kristen put the digital note taker in the chat. And oh, your kids left. And there's a survey. If you could fill out that survey, that would be absolutely awesome. And thank you. It's lunchtime. I almost put a meme on food on there, but then I thought people might just be too hungry for that.
Thank you very much, Carrie and Christine, for this wonderful and interesting session. And we're gonna go to our lunch session. If you want to listen to the session while eating your lunch, I posted a link earlier regarding the lunch session, and have a great lunch, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Do we need to stay, to the session for lunch, or we can?
The session for lunch is in a different Zoom link. Okay, let me get that for you. So this is the session for lunch. That's the Zoom link for session for lunch. And it's a different Zoom link.
But do we really need to go there, or we are free to, don't attend the session for lunch, then just come back for the next session?
It's your choice, but we encourage you to listen to the keynote speaker on lunch.
Okay, thank you.
Is that the one with Dr. Childs?
That's right.
Okay, because I'm just checking. It is on the Eventbrite schedule as well.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
If anyone has any last minute questions, you're more than welcome to throw those in the chat too.
And someone asked, we're currently in room 2.
Okay. Yes, the slides are on the digital note taker. So at the very bottom of the digital note taker that was in the link or in the chat, you'll have a copy of the PowerPoint or the slides.